orbit in Chicagoland in general. And we have been able to engage community leaders and youth activists and academic professionals. And we've been able to engage a lot of people about what's going on with this pandemic, COVID-19, how it's affecting Black and Brown neighborhoods, and all the kind of residual things that are coming as a result of it. Now, we've talked about disparities, we've talked about socioeconomic disparities as well, and the socioeconomic and political movement that was brought on by the murder of George Floyd. Now, remember that happened back in May for those of you who don't have those dates right. Anyway, this is kind of a continuing, very fluid conversation that we want to have. Now, this week's town hall, we're going to talk about and focus on the events of earlier this week, really. The looting, in particular downtown, near north areas, retailers and businesses. And we're going to talk about how the role of social media in that. We're going to talk about what sparked it. We're going to get reaction to what happened, what folks think's behind it. Did it really serve a purpose? Maybe we can juxtapose that to what happened after the shooting of Laquan McDonald. It might be interesting to look at that again, or during Rodney King, during that situation. Some of y'all may be too young to remember that. I'm dating myself now, right? So let me get to a panelist, and then we can start talking, because I think this is really important to get to this. We have, and we're talking about A-listers here, guys, so we got very, very lucky. We have Pastor Donovan Price, Solutions and Resources, Street Pastors. Pastor, thank you so much. We've had many conversations, and I appreciate you when I'm out there gathering news. We have Diamante Wallace and Taylor Norwood of Good Kids Mad City. Ladies, thank you so much. We have activist Mark Carter, who is the founder of Vote. And also Glenn Brooks, who is a director of the Office of Community Policing with the Chicago Police Department. Thank you all so much. So let's just jump right into this. I want to start with the ladies. You all are of a younger age. I mean, I'm 84. Okay, I'm not 84. Anyway, what did you all think about the looting? Tell me about that. Diamante and Taylor, tell me what you all thought.
So yeah, for me personally, and for Good Kids Med City, I think speaking for the org, we thought it was more so like a reallocation, right? Like capitalism is this thing that is okay with people being houseless, people dying of starvation, people dying, period. So we understand this system that is not built for us. So people going downtown and taking from businesses that take from us on a regular basis didn't even really feel like some kind of, oh, they're being criminal. It's an uprising. People are upset. People are angry for more than just one thing. People in Inglewood were angry about their friend, their cousin, their brother being shot by the police. And they went and did that, right? But then they're also angry about people being homeless. They're angry about people not having food. They're angry about having to buy things that are a resource, that are required to live, right? So it's all of these different things that people are angry about, and this is an uprising. Those places, their insurance will cover everything. They won't even, they probably won't even lose a dime. But people are losing their life to this system on a regular basis. So it's just that.
Okay, well, I thank you for that. Taylor, what did you want to add to that?
Yeah, I just think it's really important what Dami hit on, that if we're going to talk about like looting and why the community is out creating this mass destruction, as people will call it, we have to really address the issues that are going on in these communities. People don't have resources, people don't have job opportunities, people don't have secure fresh food. Like, we are redistributing wealth to our people. The fact that people have to go out and loot should say enough within itself, because those same resources are not being put back in those communities. Otherwise, there would be no need to go out and steal, no need to go out and take the things that you feel like you're not getting, the things that are necessities that we are constantly being told that we don't deserve, because we are criminals, because they like to criminalize us, as you see them doing with the looting situation. When you take an act of systematic violence against someone and then you reduce it to a dollar sign, you are disrespecting the entire group of people who are falling victim to that system. So that's what we really want to focus on, the people who are actually being harmed, not the rich, wealthy, more affluent people who live on the north side, who are afraid that the community that they've built for themselves that does not service Black and brown people is being threatened.
Okay. Pastor, what are your thoughts on that? What are your thoughts? How do you respond to the I think it was referred to as a reallocation of resources or reallocation? What are your thoughts, Pastor?
I think that there are many ways to handle it. I think that what they say, there are many ways to skin a cat. I think that some people will revolt, other people will sit down at the table, other people will stand by and pray, other people will march. I think that, however, anytime that it causes destruction or a problem to someone else, then that's of course where I would stand. I don't believe that harming someone, even though they, in a sense, in an opinion, may have harmed you, is necessarily the way to go. I think that wrong is wrong and right is right. I think also that in the midst of good situations, in the midst of good causes, there is always or oftentimes that element of negativity that jumps in. Whenever you have a group of good kids, every parent tells their kid, watch that kid right there, or watch that person right there. And so even in the midst of good causes, I put on my Facebook page, the devil loves a good cause, because when there's something positive happens, there's always that element of negativity that turns it around, that seems to overtake it, that seems to infiltrate it, and seems to cause it to go left and to water down what could otherwise be a powerful movement.
All right. So, Mark, what are your thoughts? And what we're doing is we're giving everybody a chance to give their thoughts out there. And then I'll start asking you all some questions. And Glenn, we'll get right to you after we hear from Mark. Mark, your thoughts.
Yes, as it pertains to those were the looters that they looted. Oh, that's a big call. Those are the looters. The people on the north side. Those people with those major corporations who are children and descendants of slave owners. Those big stores that are on. See, nobody's looking behind the scenes and tying those major corporations into slavery. Nobody's talking about the level of looting that happens at the hands of those people on the Gold Coast who are stealing every dime, sucking the life blood out of this city. People who are going to have this generation of children and our grandchildren in so much debt, to the point, and this is what they agreed. Their greed is just next level. When you talk about the city of Chicago may take a project that only costs $10 million, and as taxpayers, we end up paying $50 million out to change orders and things like that. I say, why not? Where was the same loud outcry? And I'm specifically speaking to people in our community who were mad at the young people for going up there and quote unquote looting. Where's that loud outcry about the starvation that's happening? Why is it so important that some little personal property or some stuff like she said that they have insurance on? Why is that so important?
Well, Mark, some people would say, let me stop you there. Some people would say, and I'll have Glenn comment on this. Some people would say that basically no one's arguing about I don't think anyone is arguing the frustration. But what do you say, and I want Glenn to respond to this, what do you say to those people that say, listen, looting it's wrong, you're stealing, it's wrong. You understand the frustration, but how it is being channeled is incorrect. And put it in context. After Laquan McDonald, Black Friday, Michigan Avenue is shut down. That's $50 million lost. Glenn, go from there. Tell me about what your thoughts are in light of what you've heard.
Yes. So I definitely hear the frustration, and I understand the frustration. And Mark has brought this to light over the years that, the systematic racism that has affected this city has done decades of damage. And that has to be addressed. As it goes to the looting, there's I'm completely on the opposite side of this. I don't see it as a redistribution. And let's talk about that. One, the notion that insurance is going to cover all the costs. So, one thing I've noticed we are not talking about is all the people who are now not working this week because of the looting. So all those sales associates and those people who are working at Nordstrom's and those other jobs, they aren't working because there's nothing to sell. So we're not talking about that. And when we talk about a redistribution of wealth, there was no transfer of capital. What transferred were some purses, shoes, and other consumable items. There is nobody that is going there who now owns property or that now has a savings account based upon that they've stolen a purse. So to the frustration, it is real and it has to be addressed. There is no reason we can continue to tolerate the disinvestment in Black and brown communities around this city. Mm-hmm. However, I don't see how the looting has brought more investment to the community. I don't see how the looting has brought more educational opportunity. I don't see how the looting has brought more capital to the Black and brown communities. What I see is a level of frustration where we have there isn't an outlet and there isn't been given enough traction. And I'm not picking on Mark, but I will say this. Mark has been saying that we need to do more with housing, jobs, union jobs for years.
Yes.
He has marginal traction.
Well, let's not go there. Let's not go there. See, because I'm not trying to get into I'm saying what I want to talk
to Mark as they should have. When he brings up this issue that we need to invest more money into the communities, people aren't to him like they should responding. He's right about that. You're 100% right.
Right.
And
so I guess my issue is this. Now that we've established, see, I don't want to get bogged down. I wanted to get an idea of where people are with the looting, with that, because by calling it looting, the looting is a crime. It is a crime. It is a response, but it is a crime. I wanted to get an idea of where the mindset was, and I understand that. So my thing is, I don't want to get so bogged down in debating what happened. I want to get to why it happened. So I understand.
Evelyn, can I say this?
Hop in.
I say that anything it takes to get their attention, you must do it. Even if it means that you're going to be a disliked person, even if it means sometimes you have to break the law. I mean, it was against the law for our people to when Jim Crow and all those things were going on. There was a whole lot of things against the law for us to do, but that didn't make it right. And so if I don't agree with nothing,
but I mean, the criminality of some Jim Crow is very different. I mean, what I'm saying is that some people, and this is where I am, some people are saying to me, they're texting me and they're emailing me saying, well, if insurance going to cover what have you, and it's because I'm frustrated and I lack and I want, then if insurance is the coverage, meaning you don't lose anything, you're not out anything, then what's the difference between me walking up and busting you in your mouth and saying, well, it's okay because you have a health insurance and you can go to the dentist. So it's okay. You see, what I'm trying to understand is where the logic is, but at the same time, not get bogged down. Why is it that the Laquan McDonald boycott of shutting down North Michigan Avenue, $50 million was successful, and got the attention. And then how is it pivoted to the point where it's here? I'm trying to figure out that, not so much debate. It's not, I don't want it to become just a debate about means. I want it to become a conversation about what in the world do we do to address the frustration? What do we do? Some people say, oh, you need more policing. A lot of people say, no, you don't. You don't need to flood these zones. You need to address, as you would put it, Mark, the hunger that exists in neighborhoods because of lack of resources. Pastor Donovan, tell me what you think.
Well, I've always said this. It's just like when I was asked about the president sending federal troops to the city. Okay, if you're going to send the FBI, the ATF, the DEA, then you should send the Department of Housing to. You should send the Department of Education to. You should send the Department of Human Services to. If you're going to so-called do something to help the problem, then help the entire problem, because everything is not crime. Sometimes it's hungry crime, feed my kids crime. Sometimes it's I couldn't get a job because when they looked at me, they thought that my hair should be a certain way crime. Sometimes is I couldn't get an education because this and that occurred. There were times when people were suspended from school because their hair was braided a certain way, and that wasn't in the 1960s. That was in 10 years ago, 5 years ago. And so all that glitters is not gold. All that a dark cloud does not symbolize that it's going to rain, or does not symbolize a storm. But rather, if we take a look and actually talk to people, which is a lost cause, if somebody were to sit down with the young people, or with me with the homicides, if somebody would sit down with the shooters and say, what were you thinking this morning when you went out? What were you doing? And you'd find out that some of these things can actually be solved in a way that would actually deal with the problems and solve a problem that exists here for a group of people, as opposed to solving the event. Don't make this this shouldn't necessarily be an event-oriented solution and an event-oriented set of resources, but rather a people, a group, a 100 years worth of resources and solutions.
Well, let me tell you, Pastor, a lot of people will say, and like I say, I got folks emailing me and texting me, and I'm throwing stuff out there because I'm trying to get an idea. A lot of people say, well, if this is sparked by a shooting and misinformation or information that was put out on social media, which we now know based on what we've seen, that information that was put out on social media was incorrect in multiple times in multiple ways. How does this impact the whole George Floyd movement, which was supposed to be bringing about an awareness and then following that a parity? Because so for some folks, you look at this, you say somebody gets shot after they shoot at police. There is this social media put out there about what actually occurred, incorrectly, by the way. And then there's an organized effort. You see, that's what I think a lot of folks can't get around. And I'd like the young ladies to speak to that. Anybody else who'd like to. It's an organized effort where you meet up at 87th and State and you run car caravans down to certain, and you hit certain spots. And so for me, if I hear this whole thing about reparations, I'm trying to understand how a Gucci bag makes me whole. Or some tennis shoes that are not my size. I'm not trying to be flippant or I just want to understand it. Taylor, did you had a thought?
Yeah. So I wanted to touch on a few things. So like one, like you just talked about, like the Gucci bag and the tennis shoes. Again, it doesn't always have to make you whole, even if it makes these people in these communities happy. That's part of the protest in itself. And again, the redistribution of wealth, even if people don't understand what that looks like. So people are out here looting clothes and shoes and bottles and hair and all different types of stuff, and they're selling it. They're selling it to make their money. These people, the same people who don't have jobs, who can't go get jobs, who can't go get that government assistance, who can't provide for their family, they're finding other ways to provide for themselves. And I think that another thing that we need to talk about again is that the narrative is becoming that, people are going to loot because there was misinformation out on social media, and nobody is actually addressing the fact that we don't know what the misinformation is. The police did not have their body cameras on. There is no one to say anything
but they
that
did not.
happened or did happen.
But the information that I have was that there were posts put on social media that referred initially that a child had been shot and killed, that it was adjusted to a young child, that it was a 15-year-old that was shot and killed. and then it adjusted from there. So what I'm saying is, you know, to deflect to the body cam, you're right. And don't get me wrong, that's a concern to me. I think that there needs to be that accountability. I think everyone would agree with that. But by the same token, to deflect to the body camera, when in essence, it feels like that was an excuse. That's the word I'm looking for.
But,
For some people, it
Evelyn,
feels like that was an excuse. Say what you
Evelyn,
need to say,
Kelly.
Mark. Say what you need to say, and then let Glenn in here.
okay, Evelyn, whatever information came out, whether right or wrong, why are we still having a discussion? Why are we still having a discussion about what happened on Oak Street? Why don't we go into the solution mode? I'm not saying for us right here. I'm saying overall. Why?
Yes.
Why is the mayor not getting on TV saying, "I'm coming for you" when it comes to all these poverty pimps, these contract thieves that are stealing our looting our future, our children's future? Why don't we go into solving the problem? If we're saying that ADOS, because I'm not here about no black and brown, I'm strictly talking about black people, okay?
Yes.
Descendants of slavery. You know, make that clear.
Yes.
I don't believe in diversity. I don't believe in integration. None of that stuff. Because when we were being mass incarcerated, nobody came to help us.
Understand.
None of the plural words that you're talking
I hear your point.
So,
I hear your point.
Yeah. So just straight to the point. You know, let's get to the solution of now that the attention has been gotten. You know, and they have definitely gotten their attention.
No doubt.
You know, they did everything but go on Astor Street. See, that's where they should have gone, on Astor Street. And then they really would have got the attention, okay? If I was going to coach him,
I understand. But you're saying now, let's stop dealing and get to what we need to do to understand the frustration and to deal with it. Glenn, what did you want to add? And then let's talk about what we need to do to make sure it doesn't happen as a community. Glenn, what did you want to add?
So I think what we really want to talk about here is what needs to happen as a community. If our communities aren't getting those investments, what can we do to get those investments in those communities? What can we do for people to get those opportunities? And you refer to Laquan, and out of the Laquan, there was things that have changed. Okay, there's from whether it be the superintendent, whether it be the consent decree, whether it be the actual mayor, all these things have changed. Because of that shooting, people demanded change, and there was change that has occurred. And if we look at where we are today,
let me ask you though. But what does the monitor say about the consent decree and Chicago Police Department's progress with the consent decree? Are they following it? Have you hit those benchmarks?
They've said we have not met enough of those deadlines, and we're missing deadlines. But let's talk about the underlying thing there. Even if we're missing the deadlines, guess what? The monitor is not going anywhere. Either way it goes, those have to be met. And both the mayor and the SUB has said those have to be met. So this is not like one of these things that, we missed the deadlines and the consent decree goes away. Nothing goes away.
No, I don't think anybody thinks anything goes away. I think what I'm trying to get at is that saying that the consent decree is there, but basically it's not being followed. There are deadlines that are being met, but you're talking about progress being made. I think the perception that people have is that no, there's not progress being made because these deadlines aren't being met. And they're looking at a situation in a neighborhood where they're still dealing with a lot of that misunderstanding or tension. You get what I'm getting at? Go ahead. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm trying to get at.
And I get that. And listen, progress needs to happen faster. And there is no doubt people want change and they want it faster. And we have to be more responsive to that. There is another opportunity here to have conversations about, guess what? We need more investment and more opportunity to both the Black and brown communities of the city. We cannot be a city of two tales. There should not be a city where we have these food deserts. There should not be a city where people don't have the opportunity to fulfill their dreams and are starving and fighting for resources. So we have to get to that point. That has to be the conversation versus what looting we have on this particular day. Because if we're having that conversation, there is no sustainable change that's going to come.
You're right.
Looting is not going to bring a sustainable change.
With this whole issue of you keep hearing this defund the police. Well, I don't think people understand what that really means. I think they, I don't think I don't think most people want police to go away. But I think what they do want is they want resources shifted. Would I be correct in that, ladies, or Mark, or
No,
Pastor?
I think we know what we want when we say defund the police, and that
what do you
$1.8
want?
billion that
What does
they
that mean?
get a year, we want that reinvested into our communities. We want that money, and we want to be able to build our communities up like we haven't been. These communities have been consistently disinvested in.
Mm-hmm.
We have seen on the south and west sides of this city how
But you don't want the police to go away.
No, we do.
You want the police gone away, gone.
Yes.
So no police force at all.
Keep us safe.
No
we keep us safe, and we know good and well that on a regular basis, we've seen how the police don't keep us safe. We've seen how they criminalize Black and brown youth on a regular basis.
Let me ask you one question. Let me stop you. I don't mean to interrupt you, but I interrupt because I want to stop you. So what do you say to those people who hear what you're saying very articulately? I'm hearing exactly what you're saying. But what do you say to those people who say, if it were about establishing Block Hub, the Block Hub, what do you say to people who say, well, in these neighborhoods, it's where Black people are killing Black children. And when it comes time to investigate those types of things, then that's not the neighborhood taking care of the neighborhood, because everybody clams up and understandably so, they're afraid of the perpetrators.
Well, I can say this. Big Kids Mad City did a press conference with moms and dads and families whose children had been killed due to intercommunal violence, right?
Yes.
And they said that police had not, their children's cases were still unsolved.
They're still cold cases, okay.
Right, they were still cold cases. They had got no calls from Lori. They got no calls from the superintendent. They've been calling and making these attempts to try to get some leeway, make some headway in their cases, and nothing was happening. Mm-hmm. Those people are even calling for defunding CPD because they know that they haven't done anything to help them solve their cases. They would rather sit down and have a conversation. They would rather do something that looks like restorative justice than looking like something criminal, because that hasn't helped them at all at this point. They're making calls, they're doing all of these different things.
So do you think that the Black neighborhoods, and you can answer this, and then I would like to hear from Mark as well. Do you think that Black neighborhoods would be safer without police? Is that what you're saying? Okay. What about you? Who's talking?
I'm
sorry. Who wanted to add?
That was me.
No, it's okay. Go ahead, Taylor. Go ahead, Taylor.
So we really, 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 really want to stress that, we believe that Black and brown communities, specifically Black communities, can be self-sustainable if they're being invested in. So if people are given the resources that they need, and houses and jobs, and the kids can get the proper education.
So Taylor, what does that look like? Describe that neighborhood to me. Without police, with the proper investment, without police, what does that look like? What does that neighborhood look like?
It looks like schools. It looks like mental health centers. It looks like fresh food markets. It looks like jobs that are not all the way across the city. It looks like young Black men not having to travel through several different gang territories just to get something that is essential for them to live. It looks like building community. It looks like people on the block knowing each other, people actually building those relationships, and us being accountable to ourselves, not people
how much of that can happen now? Take police out of it. Take that out of it. How much of that can happen now?
How much of that can happen now?
Well, you're talking about these relationships between people in the block and being responsible. How much of that can happen now, just out of from your perspective?
Right now, I think especially the relationships part is already happening. That's what community organizers are doing. We're building that community. We're in our communities. We're in the streets. We're in other Black and brown communities, loving on each other, healing on each other, so that we can start that process ourselves.
Okay, Mark, what did you want to add?
Well, let me say that the police have a necessary place in communities because we do have the good, the bad, and the ugly. So
so you're not saying you don't want to get rid of police?
Well, I'm no, not at all.
No.
I mean, there's a balance. But what I'm saying here is that I'm pulling the layers back on the people who have started this so-called defund the police piece, right? And you come to find out that some of these same people are those same looters that we're talking about, all those poverty pimps. So you look at this whole liberal agenda. The liberal agenda don't include Black people. So when I hear people say Black and brown people their unemployment numbers are not high like Black people. If you look at the numbers, okay? When you look at the $1.5 billion that Trump sent to Lori while she's talking all this talk that she's talking, when you look at the $1.5 billion that Trump sent to Chicago just for the coronavirus time, the Hispanic community was eating off that $1.5 billion. If you go into the senior buildings when they were cleaning the buildings, and there's a lot of things that happen, a lot of contracts and everything, they are working. If you look at the construction industry in our community, they are working. It is the Black people, descendants of slavery, who are being left out the equation. If we deal with our economics instead of all these no money fights, see, we like the liberal agenda likes to get people into no money fights while they're making billions of dollars. Okay, so we need to focus on how we economically control our communities, not so much focus on racism. If you focus on the economic control of your community, a lot of things that you're dealing with as it pertains to police coming in contact with the children, it would totally change. Because the police don't tend to go after children that they know their parents got attorneys that'll come after them, Well, and so we never focus on the economics.
I understand. And speaking of the economics, I mean, I think it's estimated that to date, the city is 700 million in the hole, and that the cost of the looting to date through I think there's an insurance institute. I looked up some numbers. They said it was anywhere, viable insurance claims was anywhere from 700 to 900 million to date.
But that's not the city doesn't pay that off though.
No. What I'm saying is that there's a shortfall. So someone's got to pay. Someone's got to pay that bill. When my electric bill comes in, it's got my name on it, and they want me to pay. I can't go to Mark and say, "Hey, Mark, hit me up." Blah blah blah. No, it's like, no, I got to pay that bill. That's the bill is due. So when I'm short, we're short. I'm wondering about the resources, how you shift resources around to fill those holes, to get the resources to the neighborhood, to deal with the frustrations that exist there while dealing with, the pandemic. And I certainly don't want the pandemic to become this all-encompassing excuse not to do what most likely what should have been done a long time ago. Let me get Glenn in here since we talk about police. Glenn, what did you want to add?
So the defund police, and I know people like to look at the police budget and said, if we just take that money invested into the South and West sides, then we would start uplifting the community. Personally, $1 billion is not going to do it.
Right.
The police budget is not going to do it. So let's be honest.
What's going to do it, though, Glenn? What's going to do it?
You're going to have to start talking about $10 billion in investments over a period of time, and whether that is in housing, whether that is in schools, whether that is in healthcare, and so forth, and educational opportunities. Those are the kind of investments. And, it sounds like a ridiculously high amount of money. However, I will argue that the investment in Chicago is not only worth it, but when we look at other large, where we had rescue plans, and a lot of people like to go back to the Marshall Plan after World War II, or if we don't have to go back that far, we can look at what we put in Iraq and Afghanistan in the last 20 to 30 years. We can invest that amount of money in cities across this nation, in particular in Chicago. That will help lift up this city and bring people the opportunity that they want. At the same time, as a city, we have to move forward as a whole. There cannot be one side has everything and the other side doesn't. So we need to invest those dollars to lift up the city. And the police budget isn't going to do it. The investment that we need to make is not what the police are getting paid. Can we police a little bit differently? Does every answer to every problem in the community need to be the police? No. In no way, shape, or form. When somebody is sick and somebody's having crisis, whether it be emotional or mental, and they need help, they should not be calling 911 and a police officer shouldn't be showing up. Somebody should be showing up that can help that person get through that crisis and heal so they can continue their life. There's multiple things that the police should not be at, and there's things as a community we need to invest in to ensure that they have it.
Yes, go ahead.
Let me say this. If they just treat us like they treat illegals, I think we'll be okay. Look, this city.
Who is they and how do they treat you? Talk about
from
the city?
Mayor's office.
Okay.
From the mayor's office to these Black elected officials, to these county officials. If you all go and look at Office for New Americans, for example, right? Go look at the Office for New Americans website and just look at how much resources that they steer toward these people, right? Now, these people are illegal, haven't served their time for crimes committed, and the same fight is equivalent to formerly incarcerated people fight. And most people that are formerly incarcerated are trying to get their records straightened out so they can go to work. They can be a legitimate person and go to work, right?
Yeah.
But these illegal people haven't even served the time for crimes they've committed, and they're giving them all these opportunities that we don't even get coming out of slavery.
Well, and I understand what you're saying.
Going to the solution of it.
Okay, go ahead, quickly, go ahead, finish up.
Well, going to the solution of it, we have to, and you all, especially you, Evelyn, because you have a big voice, you have a mic in your hand. If we just went into looking at the CDBG funds that come into the city, Glenn is correct. That $1 billion with the police department, that's pennies. 78 Acre site just got $1.3 billion from the city for TIF money. The CDBG money that's coming, we need to enforce the civil rights laws and the HUD laws. If we enforce those laws, and we sued CHA once before, CHA had to give us about $130 million in contracts. So we need that voice that you have to help us catapult this message of the civil rights laws and the HUD laws when it comes to these fundings that are coming down. Because even having all this Black leadership, starting with a Black mayor, she makes sure she takes care of illegals before she takes care of Black people. And so
I would say I think that now that's your opinion. I'd say that she would look at it differently. But my concern, honestly, in having the conversation is that I think that a lot of times we get bogged down, meaning we, people that have these conversations, get bogged down and pitted against one another. There has to be a way that the immediate issue of this frustration and violence in Black neighborhoods is addressed. There has to be a way to address that now.
The resources.
How do you stop the looting? Now, I'm going to tell you, from my perspective, I think you need affordable housing. You need job training and you need good paying jobs. I'm not talking about let me work 40 hours and I'm still short. I'm talking good paying jobs that requires education. Communities have to be responsible, meaning they have to step up and speak up. It's easier said than done. I'd be the first one to admit it. There has to be what I call parity. And what I guess I am concerned about as a person, as a Black woman, as a mother of 2 Black daughters, I am concerned that the man that died on May 25th, if I have that date right, that would have died in vain because the conversation and the movement and the momentum toward parity has been slowed and splintered because of these, what I would deem, I wouldn't want to say petty, but because of these arguments, as Mark, you and I have talked about crumbs. And so I'm trying to see what do we do? Maybe the young ladies can tell me, how do you deal with that? How do you address the anger? Now, you want to defund the police? Okay, no problem. That's your attitude. That's your approach. That's your opinion. That may take a minute. In the immediate, it's Thursday. How do we deal with it, ladies? Talk to me, Taylor.
We keep holding these rich white people and these police officers and these elected officials accountable. even though people don't agree with the looting that's going on and the way people are going about their anger and addressing it, there's no such thing as good protesting or bad protesting, because there's no such thing as like being a good murder. If you murder somebody, then you murdered somebody. So if we're gonna go into the media and into the public and be so vocal about these criminals or these people who are being violent, then we need to be just as vocal and use the correct language around these police officers and call them murderers when they are murdering people. That is part of the problem. We start changing the narrative. We give the people their power back. We take our truth back, and we get to create our own story, not the other way around.
Let me ask you a question. Let me ask you a question. What level of responsibility does that 20-year-old man have with his engagement with the police out in Inglewood?
I cannot say that because nobody knows the engagement that 20-year-old man had with the police, because the police who were supposed to be wearing their body cams did not have them on. The police that we paid millions of dollars to have all this equipment on top of all these contracts that they have while they're in our communities killing us did not have their body cams on. So I'm not going to go anywhere on any platform and criminalize that 20-year-old man, because nobody actually knows what happens.
And
that's
I
the
asked
problem.
The question.
That is part of the problem, that we are so okay with criminalizing Black and brown people immediately without hearing what's going on, because the police said that something happened.
There is a rush to judgment, but I guess what I'm trying to understand is what is the level of responsibility? Because for some people,
let me answer.
Hold on. Yeah, absolutely. Because for some people, it sounds like we double back. It sounds like excuse. Mark, what do you want to say? Go ahead.
Listen, the brain doesn't fully develop till you're 25, 26 years old, right?
That's correct. That's correct.
So let's treat him like we treat those little white children when it was majority white children downtown, wrecking downtown. You didn't hear this type of language that you hear now. It was majority Black children, okay, with everything that's happening out here. And you didn't even hear this coming from Black people about these little white children, you know, when they were down there doing the things they were doing. And they did a whole lot of different things, you know, but let me go to this point here.
Okay.
The prevailing wage in the city of Chicago, and I'm going to use Chicago Housing Authority. The prevailing wage right now for a laborer is $66.50 an hour. $66.50 an hour. Do you think that these young people would have to loot if they were making $66.50 an hour? No, they wouldn't be looting. But because there's no intention, there are no intentions made by these, even Black people that are in these positions, to put these young people to work, they're left with having to, even if they take a minimum wage job, what are they going to pay for if they have children? They have a family that they have to take care of. A lot of these children don't have fathers. They don't have mothers. They're homeless. They come from runaways or emancipators of children that were adopted out and things like that. So what are they going? Let's talk about getting them into the real good paying jobs. Let's talk about the contracts, helping them start their own businesses and things like that. Nobody wants to talk about that because there's so much corruption. Don't tell me about the children looted, but you're not going to talk about these contract looters in the city. Equally, if you're going to talk about the breaking in the stores, let's talk about the pension budget, $66 billion, where the city is giving almost $200 million to these companies, these market companies that are investing in money all over the country and inflating these costs to make these investments. Let's look at those things right there.
I hear your point.
But going back to the young people,
hang on 1 second.
Their brains,
Okay, let me get Pastor in here. So, Pastor, you are out there. How hard is it to get to resources? How hard is it to get resources to kids that actually need the support, need that support, the job training, so they can make the right choices? Because I do understand.
I think we need. I think in many ways we need to step back a bit. Now, what I do when someone is shot and killed, generally speaking, I get there about 20 minutes after shots fired. Okay, that's what I do. Okay, so I got little 11-year-old such and such on the ground dead with his brains all over 79th Street or whatever street, Madison Street, whatever the street is. And then we got Mr. Man that did it. And so I cannot see his mother saying, well, it's okay because he came from a bad family and didn't have the opportunity to get a good job. I don't know if that drug dealer on the corner, I don't know if that shooter who just blew this 11-year-old's head off, or I don't even have to say 11-year-old. See, I carry this towel because I'm fat and it's hot. And fat people have to constantly do this because they're hot. I once had a towel and that towel was covered with blood, the blood of that 1-year-old who was shot coming from the laundromat with his mom. Mm-hmm. Now, I can't see going back to that person and saying, well, he came from I can't explain to his mama, I can't explain when I'm in the pulpit during that 15-year-old's funeral, that 11-year-old's funeral, that 1-year-old's funeral, I can explain to them systemic slavery problems that we had and we was in chains. I can't explain to him that the person that blew his head off did it because they couldn't find a job that was more than minimum wage. I can't do any of that because right then his head is all over the thing. Right then there's a funeral full of 7th graders. Right then, I can't explain any of that because the person who did it, the person who we all know who did it, doesn't own Macy's, doesn't own that, and none of that has to do with anything. And in the sense that, yes.
So what does it have to do with, Pastor? I know you're passionate.
That is a problem. But we have a big issue with saying that a problem is the problem. Yes, that's a problem, and that's a problem over there. That's a problem over there. He is a problem. He's a problem because he's bad, just plain bad. He's ignorant because he's just plain ignorant. How we got ignorant, how we got bad, doesn't matter right now because today is Thursday, and on Thursday,
you sound like Joe Biden.
Mark, hold on, Mark.
You sound like Joe Biden.
Mark, hold on.
Okay, so I'm not out there, and this blood is not on the street, and that kid's head was not all over my towel. None of that happened, and we should all sit down and have a meeting because this is a terrible thing that this happened. I understand that there are reasons, but right now we need solutions. We need solutions. Right now, I don't see a lot of that. I don't see a lot of folks trying to do solutions.
What do you think then, Pastor? What do you think? I mean, we're spitballing here. We're talking. I mean, what do you think? What are your thoughts? You had to have thought about it.
I think that for every group that is locating, okay, sit down and say, Mark says this as a result of the corporate problem and the corporate people looting our people. Not saying that that's not right, true and happening and terrible and everything like that. But we need a group of people that's going to sit down from Mark's organization, from Damiana, is that right? Damiana, from her organization, from Good Kids Mad City, from wherever the case may be, to sit down with these people on this end. We're the solution team. We're trying to do this. Today, we're going to do this. How are you going to hire this little girl right here who otherwise is going to bust your window in? Here's your opportunity to hire her right now so she doesn't bust your window in. What are we going to do as a solution? Somebody needs to eat right now so that they don't do it. We need to do that. We're saying basically the same thing, but we're saying it from a different angle. There was a movie called Vantage Point, and it was talking about shooting and blowing folks' heads off and snipers and all that.
Yes, from different vantage points, and that was the whole theory. That was the whole plot of that. Yes, I hear what you're saying.
We're going to one at a time take care of this vantage point. Take care of this problem. We need some solution-oriented people to attach to the people who are woke and got this problem and know this problem. Okay, this is what we do. Step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, step 5. And this is
so again, what do you think? What do you think?
I think that we need to right now, first of all, take care of the mindset of some folk. We need to take care of the minds as one group is perhaps, or one group of people is working to try and get the narrative to change and things to change. At the same time, we need another group of people to talk and work with some of these gang members or these drug dealers or whatever, because the drug dealer ain't gonna quit selling drugs for no kind of job most of the time, because the job ain't gonna pay that way. But the only way the job can pay him to make the amount of money that he makes selling drugs is if he somehow perhaps got an education or at least some training or at least learned the way this worked and such and such. Yes, teach some folk to go to Howard, teach some folk to go to Morehouse, but teach some folk to go to Yale and Harvard and Princeton at the same time, so that perhaps the Harvard folk and the Morehouse folks can get together and he can translate Harvard to the Morehouse guy, and Morehouse can translate Morehouse to the Harvard guy. And so now we have people who speak the language of both entities, and they can come into the table and help solve the problem. Solutions and resources. When I got ready to start my organization, somebody told me, name it something that folks ain't got to ask what you do. And it's called solutions and resources. Just because that's what we need. I want everybody to work toward making me not work. I don't want to go out.
Evelyn, I want to ask this question. I want to ask this question to the pastor, because I hear us. We always talk about the gangbang and the drug dealer, but what role do you think that these pastors play in this, especially those pastors who were right there with Daley while he starved Black people out? Don't you think some of these pastors need to go to jail too, just like the dope dealer and the gangbang? Because they were taking lots and jobs and stuff.
Hold on. Wait, stop. Taylor, we'll get to that.
I
Taylor.
also have a question for the pastor. So,
okay, because go ahead, say what you want to say.
When we're talking about these community members that you want to get involved with, where are you getting this research from? Because there are actually community organizations such as Good Kids Mad City, such as Asada's Daughters, and other youth-led, especially youth-led initiatives that are in the communities doing rapid response, taking care of those families and those gangbangers and drug dealers that you're talking about when these instances are happening. And also, is drug dealing just a crime when Black people do it, or is it also a crime when the white capitalist people are making profit off of Black and brown people?
This is what I guess it happens. And this is what I was afraid, honestly, would happen. I think I will say this, from my observations, many of the things that we're talking, and Taylor, I thank you for that. Thank you for sharing that. Many of our observations, I think, are really the same. Not all of them, but many of them. And the problem is we're talking past each other. Part of the problem is we're all angry. We're all frustrated. We all think we know how to deal with it. We all think we have a solution, and we speak from our experience. What we do. I mean, we do. I don't profess.
I've got one answer.
I don't profess to know. I don't live in Inglewood. So I have no freaking idea what people who have to live there and work there and navigate their families and stay safe and deal with the boys on the corner and deal with the jerk boss who they know needs that job, or get on a stinky bus and pay him money to get on a bus that, whatever. And you deal with these issues. I understand why people, right. I had a reporter ask me, a white reporter asked me, why are Black people so angry? I said, you'd be angry too. You'd be angry too if you were disrespected and marginalized every single moment of every single day in the most basic of ways. I say that, and let me add to that. At the same time, it's not an excuse, and there has to be a better path. There has to be some unity. There has to be a better path for us to stop killing each other, for us to stop slowly killing this movement and the momentum to parity. That's my fear, that the world I leave for my girls will be worse than the one I inherited.
And Taylor, I
think it's important.
Okay, go ahead, Tom. Yeah.
I think it's important to note that, we're asking for these resources for these communities because we live in them and because we know the struggles that we're going through on a regular basis. And we know that having a community center in everyone's neighborhood, having a grocery store, having a mental health clinic, and having a good school, having all of these resources leads to what you're talking about. You want to say, let's have folks at Harvard, let's have folks at Howard, Yale, all of these different places. And also 50 schools were shut down a couple years ago. So all these places, the start of what's going on, we need to make sure that these kids are getting their education at the beginning. We want to talk about education. We want to talk about all of these things that they need to be able to get the good job. They can't get the good job if their school was shut down and they're hopping from school to school to school every year. Exactly. And your transcripts can't get sent over. So by the time it's time for them to go to college, they got to pay the first school to get their transcripts to their college. And they don't have the money to do that. So now they're sitting at home and not getting education.
And I'm sure you would agree, this pandemic, now that you on remote learning, my mother is an elementary school teacher. She has students who are sitting on, and no disrespect, a prepaid mobile phone trying to do their work with remote learning.
Right, and these schools aren't giving them the resources, and they don't have the money to get the computers that they need.
Correct, absolutely, no argument there. So what I'm saying is, I understand, correction. I believe I have a sense of the frustration, because I don't want to be so arrogant to say I understand it, because I don't live it, okay? I believe I understand, I know let me put it like this, here we go, this is more correct. I understand my own anger. Okay, I understand my own marginalization that occurs. And I feel like other people feel this way too. So I think that's what we have to get to. Now listen, we don't have a lot of time left. So real quick, Mark, because we don't have a lot of time.
Okay,
we got a couple minutes, we gotta go. So say it quick.
Evelyn, please understand this. The killing of the year-old baby, the killing of the senior citizen is as a result of the social engineering. We have the most dangerous university in the world sitting in the city of Chicago, the University of Chicago. Nobody points the finger at the social engineering project. Just take, for instance, the projects. They knew exactly what would happen in the projects. They did a study. They were never called the projects. They were called Henry Horner, or they were called Stateway Garden. But it was a project. They knew intentionally that they were playing a game with the lives of the people. But we always look at the person that pulled the trigger and hold them accountable, but never talk about who's responsible.
I understand your point. I understand your point.
The people are, let's go after the people who are responsible. Glenn knows this as a police officer. If I send you, Evelyn, to go kill somebody, they're gonna give me just as much time as they give you. And you the one who pulled the trigger.
Right.
Because responsibility is just as important, or even more important, than accountability. The person that pulled the trigger. But nobody wants to talk about who's responsible, because a lot of times you talk about who's responsible, you're gonna find out that those are the special interests, Black folks. Those are the special interest white folks. Now I'm gonna leave you with this. Look,
we gotta go. There
are no white racist Republicans in power in Chicago.
So let's do this. I appreciate that. Let's do this. Can everybody because we're up against the gun here. Can everybody, Pastor, we start with you. I want everyone to say one sentence, because that's all the time I got. One sentence about what's next. Where do you hope we move forward next? How we move forward? One sentence, quick. Pastor, go.
I hope we get together. I hope we can all understand that we're all on the same page to a certain degree. We can connect this, we can unify, and we can move forward with a stronger union. And we can.
Okay. Taylor. Or Diamante, whichever one, doesn't matter.
I would just say,
go ahead.
To make sure that you guys are including the people in the conversation that we're talking about, not just the ideas that we have of them or the narrative that's been put out about these people, because when you have a platform, it is your responsibility to make sure that everyone's voice is being heard. So especially when there are thousands and thousands of people watching, you have to make sure that you're including the people who are going through these struggles, and not just the people who think they have the understanding. Cool.
Okay. Thank you, Taylor. Diamante.
Damianti. Give resources to these Black and brown communities and defund the police.
Okay. Mark, real quick, and then we'll let Glenn get the last word.
Aid those American descendants of slavery. Keep making trouble until you get their attention.
Glenn, last word.
I think I welcome in every voice, not only on this forum, but the ideas that you represent have to be at the table. There is no more sitting in a room making decisions about other communities. If the communities aren't part of the solution, there is no solution.
All right. Thank you all for this very spirited and diverse conversation. Hopefully we'll have more. And maybe we didn't come up with a solution today. I didn't expect that we would, but hopefully we've moved this conversation forward in a positive way. I thank you all for joining.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.